right, welcome to Arrowhead Stadium for tonight's Monday Night Football game between the Saints and the Kansas City Chiefs. This might be the biggest test that we have seen for this team so far this season, but most definitely the best team they've played so far this season. Defending Super Bowl champs.
Two-time.
Coming up against them at a time where both teams are kind of banged up. It's interesting because every time we talk about injuries, people are like, excuses,
Yeah.
not making excuses. But I thought it was interesting. I was up in the press box heading down, and they play like the local, whatever their version of WWL is. It's playing through the speakers up there. And they're talking about how the Chiefs are catching the Saints at the right time because they're a banged-up team, and they're already 6 injuries down, and they aren't seeing the same team they saw the first 2 weeks of the season. And it sets up good for the Chiefs. But the injuries kind of are a big story today. A big one that we're going to be keeping an eye on here. Injury report comes out in 15 minutes. Lucas Patrick. I am expecting him to play tonight.
Huge.
So that's
huge.
It's a big win for this offense having him out there, especially against a guy like Chris Jones.
Yeah, and he's still going to be, there's going to be Connor McGovern likely at center. Shane Lemieux not only was ruled out, he was placed on IR today, so he's not coming back to play center for them. Connor McGovern, what a discovery in the middle of the week. Looks like he's going to be the guy until Eric McCoy comes back. I would anticipate Landon Young again at right guard after he did it last week for the first time in his entire career. But it was probably going to be Nick Saldivaria or Oliudo at left guard. Having Lucas Patrick gives him some semblance of continuity at least.
Yeah, Shane Lemieux was the center, got placed on IR with an ankle injury. Didn't look like it was a crazy injury. He was in the locker room this week, but just one of them things where you probably just kind of need to replace him, and he's taking up a roster spot at that point. I wouldn't be surprised to see an injury settlement for him at some point. But the big key to this game, I think, number one on the list, it's obviously Chris Jones. And he often lines up over the where he feels like he has the advantage. I think we're probably going to see him mostly on the left side of the line. I think he's going to try to get himself over the left guard, and I think he's going to want to attack Trevor Penning. I think that's kind of the weak point on this line. And
you mean over his left?
His left, Saints right, yeah. So I think he's going to try to attack Trevor Penning quite a bit. I think
Landon Young and Trevor Penning over there.
I think that's where you want to be. I think that's where you have your best matchup. It's going to be a huge test for them guys. They've been able to hide Trevor Penning pretty well through 4 weeks of the season. There's definitely been some iffy stuff at times, but I think it's a little bit harder to kind of hide that on the interior when it's going to be coming on his inside shoulder this time, and he's going to have to find a way to block him. That's going to be the biggest story of this game, and if you can win that matchup, I think you have a chance to win the game, but you have to win that matchup.
Well, it's funny. We had the conversation earlier this week. We said, who are you more scared of, Pat Mahomes or Chris Jones? And I know you kind of laughed, and you're like, it's Pat Mahomes. He's maybe the greatest quarterback of all time. But I also heard, I was listening to, we mentioned before, the Bill Simmons podcast, and they were having a discussion, who's the best defense in the league right now, and they said the Chiefs.
Yeah.
They said probably because who do you trust more to make a play in the fourth quarter? What defense in the league? And they said the Chiefs. So the Chiefs, that's not their reputation, but that's what they've become. They've won 10 straight games, 9 of them one-score games. So it's Chris Jones wreaking havoc in the middle, but it's their whole defense, even without L'Jarius Sneed. It's a real test for a banged-up Saints offensive line going up against a no-joke defense.
I mean, I think their linebackers are really good, and I don't think they get enough credit for some of the stuff they can do. And there's been some injuries on guys, but Tranquil and Bolton are both really good players. Chennai, he's their third linebacker. He might be the best of the bunch. Like, he might be the best Sam in the league. And it's kind of interesting because the way the Saints approach offense, they want to get you into your base defense, and it kind of gives them that advantage because most teams don't have a good third linebacker. They have a good third corner, but I don't think you have that advantage necessarily in this game, and both those guys are really good. They're really instinctive. Bolton's battled injuries a little bit. Overtime heads up. But, yeah, I think those guys are really good, and I think they're going to be good against the run. They're solid, and I won't be surprised to see. We saw the Eagles do the 4-3 defense thing where they brought the two guys down to the line of scrimmage to create the 6-1 look. I would not be surprised to see them do some of the same things. This is a very smart and innovative defense here. Spags obviously gets a lot of credit. Has done a lot of great things here. Saints might have given up on him a little bit too quick once upon a time. He's really become one of the better guys in the league. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them try to do some of that because they have the personnel to do it.
Are you playing defense for me here?
I got your back, man.
Juwan Johnson's catching. If Juwan Johnson catches a fade route in this touchdown, we'll say we saw it in the works beforehand. I even took one in the backside on the one that didn't work out. Well, Meanwhile, on the Saints defense, they don't have linebacker depth today because Pete Werner was ruled out yesterday after he just appeared on the injury report for the first time Saturday. And their third guy is the former Chiefs' third guy, Willie Gay. He's on the injury report. He's not going to play. So that's the only place the Saints defense is really feeling injuries. It's Demario Davis and maybe DeMarco Jackson. How big of a loss is it to miss two of their top three linebackers, do you think?
I mean, I think it's a big deal. Obviously, I mean, I think you're worse when you don't have Demario. Like Demario Davis is the biggest loss, obviously, out of all them guys. And I think there's just stuff you can't do on defense when he's not out there because he is.
Pete Werner.
Well, when Demario's not out there, like
you
last
say
week.
Demario would be the biggest loss.
Yeah, because there's things you can't do on defense without him. I think he's just the guy that kind of helps get everything set, and I think you have to become not vanilla, but I think you're taking some of the sprinkles off the Sunday when he's not out there, and you can get a little bit more wild and innovative and creative when you have basically a member of the coaching staff on the field to direct traffic. So having him back, I think, is a big deal, and I think you have to hide everything in this game. There aren't a ton of quarterbacks that can go out there and just kind of direct things anymore. That's kind of like a product of a bygone era. But Pat Mahomes is one of them guys, and he just keeps getting better and better, and you see him taking more and more control. And he's somebody that understands when you're blitzing, that means there's space. And he's going to find the space. He's going to attack the space. So you kind of have to disguise everything so you're not giving anything away. So I think having Demario there allows you to kind of do that at another level. But not having Pete Werner on a day where – I don't know what their run game is going to be. Is Kareem Hunt gonna be good? I have no idea. No. But you have one of the better tight ends in the league. Not having him is a big deal. And then you take out Willie Gay. That's a big deal. So it matters. And then the other thing with this team, they've played, I think, 39 snaps to 13 personnel this year. Third highest rate in the league. Pittsburgh, I believe, leads with 50. But that means you're going to be getting into your base defense a little bit if they're going to do some of that. And I wouldn't be surprised to see that number kind of high today, given all the injuries they have at receiver. They might want to lean on their tight ends a little bit. Yeah. So being down a guy, being down two guys might be a really big deal this week.
What's interesting, I don't know if people appreciate this, that we dug up in our research this week. I think everyone has sort of agreed that Kansas City has the best interior offensive line in the league. Remember, it wasn't that long ago when their offensive line was the worst in the league. But Creed Humphrey at center and Joe Thuney at guard, I think
Trey
are widely.
Smith too.
And so those three guys as a trio, I think, get credit for being the best in the league right now. So that's going to be a matchup advantage for them. I do think you can get to their tackles. We mentioned Chase Young might be the most important guy on the field, or the pass rush that hasn't been good enough for the Saints. But if they have those tight ends on the field, maybe they're helping the tackles as well. I do wonder who Mahomes is going to throw the ball to. Rashee Rice was getting like 50% of the target share, it felt like, early this season. Obviously, we'll see more Kelsey. And the scary moment is Xavier Worthy. He is not high volume in this offense. We're talking about a Saints team that has given up 3 plays of 60-plus yards so far this year. You can't give any freebies to this offense today. You cannot give up the 60-yard Xavier Worthy touchdown today.
No, you can't. And going back to your first point, I think you want to get at Wanya Morris a little bit. I think he's their left tackle.
I think he just got his first start last week. Is that right?
He's probably the weak point of that whole entire line.
Is it the end of the road for him?
I don't know. He's a second-year player. It might be the beginning of the road, but I don't know if he's ever going to kind of. Everybody has one they're trying to hide though. And theirs are on the edge. But yeah, he's somebody that I think you want to try to attack a little bit, and I think he can be had. Worthy, the key. I don't know if it's key one, but it's got to be one of your top 5 keys. You do not want to let him get behind your guys. You need to keep a lid on him somehow. And one of the things that I think a little bit with him is if he gets in a contested catch situation, he's not a battler for the ball. So, you need to kind of attack that hard. You might be able to get a pick. So he's somebody that I think you have a chance to pick off. Them being down a few guys, I think the biggest thing, if you were going to criticize how Patrick Mahomes plays, he puts too many balls up in just precarious situations trying to go to Kelsey. I think if the Saints play him physical, you disguise a little bit, I think they're going to get a pick on a ball
6 TDs, 5 picks for him this year. Those are not numbers.
And I think 2 of them are going to Kelsey. I think they're going to get a pick today on a pass thrown to Kelsey.
Tyrann Mathieu back home?
I don't know who is – I'm going to say Alontae Taylor. I think Alontae Taylor is going to match up against him a little bit. I just can't – we didn't see anything. It's just the more and more I think about this matchup, he's the guy I want on Kelsey. He's big, he's strong, he's physical. Let him – I said it on the show yesterday. I think that's where I'm going to say Taylor picks off a pass that Mahomes is throwing to Kelsey. But whoever it is, I think there's going to be an opportunity there to jump one because – I think he's going to try to force it a little bit, and I think that's something that you can take advantage of today.
I was checking to see we're 5 minutes away from inactives. It's so funny. There's going to be two healthy inactives. It's going to be the shortest list of names we have to figure out that we've ever had to figure out before, and one of them will be Spencer Rattler, I'm sure.
So, yeah, I mean, look, one of the other things, another key to victory today, I think you have to tackle well. A lot of their stuff comes yards after catch, and they've blown some tackles. DA was talking about it today. He said this week. He said they're one of the better tackling teams quarter 1 through 3, quarter 4. They've missed a lot of tackles. I would predict probably about 55, 60, 70% or so of their yards probably come after the catch. Like, everything they're doing is yards after catch. You're going to have to tackle well. You need good ball population. And I really do think that's been one of the weaker things with the defense so far this season.
Alontae Taylor trying to make a cameo appearance after you just made that bold prediction. I think his ears were burning right behind us.
Yeah.
Look, Chris Olave is another guy who just walked by a few minutes ago. I think the Saints can score points with this team. I mean, Kansas City's a team that is winning a lot of games, 20-17 these days. It's not a track meet that they have to sign up for, and if they can get any kind of protection, I think it'll be a plan for Clint Kubiak. But I mean, I think Olave is probably the most dangerous offensive weapon for either team the way he's playing right now. So they have to have a plan for him as well.
So one of the questions in our chat from A. Lacey 26, he says, who gets more pressures and/or sacks, Chase Young or Chris Jones?
I got to pick Chris Jones. I mean, I would pick Chris Jones in a vacuum, and I would, and Chris Jones is facing the more gettable, more vulnerable opponent with the Saints' interior offensive line and frankly, unproven offensive tackle play as well. So it'd be a surprise if it's not Chris Jones, but like we said earlier this week, the best game Chase Young has had in a long time was against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl last year with a sack and a forced intentional grounding. So he feels good about playing this team.
I'm going to have to go with Chris Jones on that one. Yeah, well, we'll just see.
No shame in picking the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL.
Yeah, let's see what happens there. I mean, look, the Saints have been getting a lot of pressure. To me, it's kind of like who has more game-impacting plays. If the answer isn't Chris Jones, the Saints win. I mean, I think it's that simple. Like, if you can shut him down, I think you can win this game.
What an important night this is for both Kubiak and Dennis Allen, but Kubiak's been the hottest talking point in the league, but now everyone's watching, and now everyone's watching against the Chiefs. He's putting his resume out on tape, and it would be a disservice to him to base how well he does in this game and say, oh, he's exposed. We're talking about maybe the best defense in the league, maybe the best interior defensive lineman in the league against a battered offensive line. But if he can show something here, he's putting his resume on national TV on Monday Night Football against Super Bowl champs. And same thing for Dennis Allen. We talked about he made his reputation slowing Tom Brady, having a good plan for Tom Brady. Now he gets a chance to do that against Mahomes. I think everyone who's only casually noticed the Saints scores is going to tune in and see them now. I'm really curious to see what both those guys have in store.
One of the things that surprises me, there's been like I've seen a lot of criticism of Kubiak. I think he's been great. I thought he was great last week. I thought he had a great plan last week. Not every week's going to be 40 points. I don't think you should judge whether he's coaching well or not on whether they win the game. Not every play is going to go for 20 yards, but I think he's been awesome. I thought they were pretty good against Philly too. I thought it was a tough game, and I thought they found a way to pretty much persevere within that game. So I don't have a ton of criticism about him, but yeah, this is a huge one for him. Everyone's going to notice. If you come out and do it again on this stage, if
you do what you did against Atlanta, you get credit for that.
Yeah, that's how you get Schefter talking about you, Ian Rappaport, Albert Breer, Pelissero. That's how you get yourself on that. The story Pelissero does every year about the upcoming guys that are next in line. You show out on the national stage. Look, we saw Drew Brees lose an MVP award on a Thursday night game on a national stage. These things matter. If he does what he does in this game, I think you're right. It's a huge stage for him today. Outside of Chris Jones, which matchup are we most concerned with while the team is on offense?
While the team is on offense,
I'll go first. Look, I think just a matchup with their corners in general. Jalen Watson and McDuffie are both really good. Their corner,
so good at the
their nickel Connor, he's really good too. So I think just kind of across the board, I think those are good matchups. the Saints do a really good job with their corners. I think the Chiefs are another team that are kind of built in that same kind of, I think they got that same type of program. Their guys are always good at that position.
Yeah, and they're not going to give free stuff up to the Saints. I mean, the Saints are going to try to get around to the edges. You said their linebackers are really good. The Saints are going to have to work for everything. I think the Saints are going to have to be 9 of 15 on third downs tonight. I don't think this is going to be a big, move the ball down the field easily against this team kind of defense.
Do we like the potential of Bub Means better than A.T. Perry? I would have to say, yeah, they're telling us that. I mean, one guy's been on the active roster and one guy just got released and cleared waivers. And anybody could have claimed him, and nobody did. I mean, I wasn't expecting him to get claimed because that means you got to keep him on your 53-man roster. But nobody in the league viewed A.T. Perry as a significant upgrade over their wide receiver 4 or 5. And if they did, they would have picked him up, and they didn't. So, to me, that says right now they believe the potential of Bub Means is greater than the potential of A.T. Perry.
Lucas Patrick is active tonight. The inactives just came out. Christian Boyd for the first time. I knew they had too many nose tackles. I actually thought it might come down to Colin Saunders, of course, was going to play back in Kansas City, but Ridgeway, and they're both going to be active, and Christian Boyd's the odd man out at that position tonight.
Is Connor McGovern getting the start tonight? Yes. Does that make you feel better about the O-line tonight? Theoretically, but let's remember he was on a practice squad 4 days ago. Another guy that could have been on anybody's team and wasn't. We like the idea of him. We like the pedigree of him. We like that he coached or that he played underneath John Benton and Rick Dennison drafted him in Denver as the offensive coordinator. So like all that, but got to see it happen today. And what a punt. He just dropped that thing inside the 3.
A little background on him being on the practice squad. He's not your traditional practice squad guy, though. He was the starting center for the Jets since 2020, and he had a really bad knee injury last year. They didn't know if he was going to make it back. He didn't know if he was going to retire. Finally got healthy late in the summer, and teams were calling, inquiring about him, including the Saints. But the Jets were his team, and when he was healthy enough to come back, he came back to the Jets, signed with their practice squad in September, and has spent the last month kind of getting back into shape. So that's good news and that's bad news. He's not a practice squad player. He's a bona fide starting center in the NFL. The bad news is, he missed a lot of time recovering from injury till he's only been back for that last month.
Yeah. There's another question. I'm going to let him get out of earshot. So, someone was asking, do we expect Paulson Adebo to keep getting targeted at the rate that he's been targeted so far this season? A lot of the passes are going his direction, and I think that's a credit, obviously, to Marshawn. Nobody's throwing at Marshawn right now. He is playing incredible, and
forget he's out there. He's playing so good.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely got served a dose of shut up on that one, because I was wondering where he was going to be at after missing all the camp and everything, and he's come out and he has been great. Coming back after, what do you have, a hamstring? He missed that game. Coming back from that, he's looked awesome since then. I think Alontae Taylor's been incredible so far this season. So yeah, there's one place to throw the ball, and I think that's who you're throwing the ball at right now, and he's got to keep proving it. He has 6 penalties this season. That needs to get better. You can't come out here and do that. You can't do anything even remotely close to pass interference against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I've seen
you said that half joking, but it's not a joke. I mean, they get those calls.
They do. I've seen stats that say it's not true. I don't care. I'm going with what I believe to be anecdotally true. They get a lot of calls on those. You got to be careful, especially in his house on this stage. You got to be careful just how you're playing, and he's gonna try to throw to contact. I think
he's the guy that's gonna get tested, because you're not gonna test the other guys. And Dennis Allen said that was his takeaway before he watched the tape after the Atlanta game was they were going after him. That's the matchup that Atlanta decided they could win the game with. So it'd be shocking if Kansas City's not testing him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look, at some point if penalties keep up in that. I wouldn't hate seeing Kool-Aid get some more snaps. I wouldn't hate to see it. I think he's the future at that position.
He would also be the guy that would get tested then too. But
if Paulson wasn't getting all the turnover, he offsets the negatives with the positives.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you got to live a little bit with it. It's almost like he gets the flag and it's you're like, man, what's going on? And then the next play, oh, he's great. Yeah. It's just kind of he turns the tide so quick on that stuff all the time. But it's definitely something that he has to be careful with today, and I think he's going to get tested on it for sure. And man, I don't know. Worthy scares me a little bit. Marshawn's the only one that feels like on the outside that can run with them. I mean, they're definitely going to have to keep a cap on that. You don't want him kind of single high over there having to make a decision. Like, you got to protect that matchup today.
This is the linebacker group working behind us. As we said, we're kind of guessing it's going to be DeMarco Jackson in place of Pete Werner because that's who they went with during the game last week after Willie Gay went out on the first series. But Anthony Orji could also be their choice at will. That'll be something we're interested to see later in warm-ups.
I mean, I think Orji tackles better than DeMarco, so maybe, but I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I bet they go with DeMarco, but I could see it either way. Orji had a great camp. He really had a great camp, versatile player. I think both of them are going to be on the field, though, some of them personnel groupings and everything. Before we get out of here, last thing, what's the one thing above all else, one thing has to happen tonight, you think, for the Saints to get the win?
No freebies. Make them work for everything. Like it's been a weird anomaly with this defense that is so good this year that they've given up 3 plays of 60-plus yards and the 30-yard pass interference. Make the Chiefs work for everything. If we see Rashid Shaheed fumble return for a touchdown, a pick six, a 60-yard play, this is a game they can't afford any freebies to this team.
To me, it's if you can cut the head off of Kelsey, I feel like you got a chance. Like I don't like the rest of their weapons. If you can find a way to take him away and just kind of focus on everything else, that's why I kind of like the idea of putting Alante on him. And I don't think they'll do it every down, but if you can put Alante on him, I think you can drop a couple safeties back to take care of Worthy, and then you just let everything else play out kind of underneath. But if you have to double Kelsey and you got to have 2 guys deep, I don't know how you do that. So you might have to go 1 guy on him and then drop 2 back. I'm fascinated to kind of see how they go about it. To
my point, though, I think we both agree that if Kelsey had 10 for 100, I don't think we'd think, oh, well, then the Saints lost. Like in that work for it vein, okay, fine. If they're going to throw, 6 and 7 yard passes to him, I bet the Saints would live with that.
But if you told me he had 3 for 27, I'm saying they won the game.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I think that's
I agree with that.
Yeah. So I guess my macro point, though, if DA shows up with one of them Brady game plans and he does his thing, I'm not going to put you on the spot here. I'll go out on the limb here. Someone asked in the chat, why do I feel like the Saints are going to win this game? I said that as one of my hot takes on our show yesterday. I just kind of weirdly like the matchup, and a lot of times I'll feel one way about a game and I'll get out here and it's like I have the whole day to think about it, and then I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know. I feel like they got a chance to win this game legitimately.
You know what's really interesting to me on that, though, is the Chiefs are gettable. They've won, like I said, 10 straight games dating back to last season, including the playoffs, including the Super Bowl. 9 of them were 1-score games. But they're not overwhelming anybody. We've seen them on primetime all this year. They're a gettable team. There's a couple teams that probably should have and could have beaten them already, including the Falcons this year. But how much do you believe in the actual, can you win a close game in the end? Because it's the Saints' biggest problem right now, and it's something the Chiefs do getting out of bed in the morning. And I wonder if that will play into a factor in this game. Is this going to be a low-scoring, 1-scoring game, and the Chiefs make the plays in the fourth quarter?
If I was forced to make a blind bet on the best quarterback in NFL history, playing from behind within the parameters of, I don't know how you would define a still winnable game, I would bet Mahomes is number 1. I bet he's better than Brady in those situations. I bet he's better than Peyton Manning, Aaron Rodgers. I bet he is. There is not a team that it seems like they're behind in every game and then they find a way to win. Every single game, they're just always cool. They're always poised. It just never feels like, oh, you're up by 14, they're good. No, Mahomes is coming, he's going to win. It just seems like they do it over and over. So they're a tough team to beat. If you get a lead, don't take anything for granted. And I would say the other thing is I think they've been terrible starting games this year. I think they've given up scores on the first drive of every game. You got to start fast and finish fast. I mean, it's just kind of just get your foot on the pedal and go all the way. And if you don't do that, it's going to be tough. But you got to get that early lead and find a way to hang on to it.
I think Drew Brees, meanwhile, is the all-time leader in coming from behind in the fourth quarter, only then to have your defense give the lead back to the other team. I think he had 78
It was a throwback game last week. We're going to have your coverage all day, all night, I guess. All night, NewOrleans.Football. We have the live blog up on there, live analysis, live breakdowns. We'll still have a little stuff on Twitter, but the good stuff's there. Make sure you're signed up for that. No post-game show tonight because that would be going out about 3 a.m., so we aren't going to do that. But make sure you keep it locked. We'll have all your coverage. We're going to have all the writing, all the analysis, everything. So NewOrleans.Football is the site. Check it out. If you like what we do here, support that. It helps us put on these productions. We'll talk to you during the game.